This is Dirshu Mishnah Berurah, as we're going to conclude Siman Yud Zayin with Sif Gimel, and as well learn the entirety B'ezrat Hashem of Siman Yud Ches, Sif Aleph through Beis. We begin with Sif Gimel and Siman Yud Zayin, concluding the Siman about those who are chayiv, those who are obligated in the mitzvah of Tzitzis. Quick apology for the lack of complete video over here. We're in transit. Amir Hashem, tomorrow everything should be back in order. But says the Mechaber in Sif Gimel, Katan HaYodea Lis Atif, a child that knows how to wrap himself in his talis, in his tzitzis. That's when the mitzvah of chinuch begins. The father has to buy him a pair of tzitzis. Says the Ramah, this is Davka when he knows how to wrap the two tzitzis in front of him, and two behind him. And the Ramah continues, and as well, the he knows how to hold the tzitzis at the time of Kriyishma, which of course hones in on the importance of holding the tzitzis at the time of Kriyishma. As we see, this is one of the critical ingredients and knowing how to put on a pair of tzitzis or a talis is both knowing how to put them on correctly with two in front and two behind, and as well knowing how to hold them properly. So it says the Mishnah Berurah over here, Sif Katan Yud Tes. Likach loy tzitzis pirush, explains the Mishnah Berurah. Likach loy beged shal dal kanafais, to buy him a garment of four corners, lahatal boy tzitzis k'lechanchai b'mitzvahs, and to put on a tzitzis in order to train him in doing the mitzvah. V'shir talisai, how big does his tzitzis have to be? Because of a primagaz mitzvah tezayim derech chayim shehu k'telis ate by rosh ruba shaloi, has to be big enough that it can wrap up his own head and body. And we judge it by the child himself, how large or how small the kid is. So even though this child could be less than 9 years old, in which we learned that is really the minimum size of a tzitzis is learned from a 9-year-old child. But if a smaller child is putting on tzitzis, as the Mishnah Berurah, then it should be in accordance to his size. If he has the right shear, if it's the right size, then you put tzitzis and you make a bracha. Then says the Mishnah Berurah, you don't make a bracha, which of course calls to mind that it seems that what do we often do? We train our children to put on tzitzis at a young age. And the age that we train them to put on their tzitzis often is even before this age, and thereby it's a very small beged. For example, many people start at the Rav Sharon when the child is 3. So it says the Dirshu over here, note number 8, Amnam. If he didn't reach that age, but he did reach the age of chinuch for brachos, then the Shevet HaLevi says you could train him to love the mitzvah, and even doesn't have the right shear. Rosh Mizalmi comes along and says that even though we don't train them with using something that is puzzle for the mitzvah, but says Rosh Mizalmi a startling statement, which of course is where Amina comes from. B'tzitzis, which is a mitzvah chashuva me'oid mitzvah kol hayoim. And even Ketanim, which are 3 or 4 years old, do not reach really the age of chinuch. They don't really know how to wear the tzitzis appropriately. Still, do not yell at those that are machanech them in this. And so too, Rav Yashiv said that midin chinuch yochel hakatan levarich, which of course is really the most prevalent minhag, I believe, is that children ready at age 3, even though they don't really reach the age of chinuch and they don't really know how to put on their tzitzis, and the beggar they're putting on is quite small, still they put it on, and we train them how to make a bracha. Says Mishnah Berurah, he calls the davka shalei giyadan gimel. Told him he's not 13 years old. Avol yud gimel, once he reaches 13 years old, ve'ela chayev v'tzitzis kegadol. Says the Mishnah Berurah, mashakasav v'joshus maharil. An interesting maharil b'chnesuach noigin shigam the arim gedolim, the large children. Ein misatim v'tzitzis achet noisan nashim. Maharil says a startling statement. We don't put on tzitzis on them until they get married. And where do they get this from? They get it from the pasuk that says, "Gedilim ta'aselecha." Nearby it says, so it seems like there was some sort of minuk that they did not put on tzitzis until they were married people. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Davar Tamua, he doesn't understand this. Actually, they should sit and be batal in the midst of tzitzis until they get married. And therefore says the Mishnah Berurah that we do not do this. The Dirshu over here points out What exactly is the Maharil talking about? Is he talking about a talis gadol or a talis katan? For the words of Mishnah Berurah, it sounds like he's talking about a talis katan, as he says they're batal from the mitzvah, and we'll leave it at that. Going back, and now we begin Simin Yud Ches, which the Mechaber coins as the Zman Tzitzis, a very, very critical. Every halacha is critical, but here we're going to get involved in the major machlekes of wearing tzitzis at night. Says the Mechaber, Laila Lav Zman Tzitzisu. Mechaber starts off with a blanket statement for the Gemara Menachais. Nighttime is not the time to put on tzitzis. Why? Demayin mirisa ma'isai, because we exclude the nighttime from the pasuk of reisa ma'isai. You have to see them, and you don't see it at night. Now, after saying it's not the Zman Tzitzis, quotes the Mechaber Machlokes. Leha Rambam, what does this mean? Kol mashal loivish balela, whatever you're wearing at night, Potter, you don't have to put tzitzis on it. Afilu miyuchal yayim. Even if it's a daytime baggage, you're wearing a regular four-corner garment, at night you don't need tzitzis. But on the flip side, let's say you're wearing something by day, and it's a nighttime garment. You're wearing pajamas, but you're wearing it by day, it's chayiv. So the Rambam learns it fully depends on when you are wearing the garment. If it is by day, it is chayiv. If it is by night, then it is potter. Quotes the Mechaber Harash, but according to the Rosh, it has to do with the garment. If it's a nighttime garment, pajamas, it's potter even by day. And a daytime garment, or both, you have to wear it with tzitzis even at night. So we have a weighted machlekes over here, Rosh versus Rambam. Quotes the Mechaber, what do we do with a garment in which one is wearing at night? Obviously, this is both if one's wearing pajamas by day, but perhaps most importantly is what if you're wearing tzitzis at night? It's a daytime baggage, a daytime garment, but you're wearing it at night. Is the nighttime itself enough to remove the obligation from tzitzis? And the Rosh holds no, and the Rambam says yes, there is no chiyuv at night. Says the Ramah, so what do we do? Safik brachos, due to the doubt, says the Ramah, lahakel. We go lekulam, we do not make a bracha, al kein ein levarich level kishlosh v'yayim. You only make a bracha if you wear it by day, it's only if you wear it by day, and it's a day and nighttime baggage. But if you're wearing it at night, no bracha at night. If you make early ma'ariv, do not make a bracha on your tzitzis at night. So we put on our talis, we know when Yom Kippur begins. So says Mishnah Berurah, do it by day, and then you can even make a bracha on it. Says the Mishnah Berurah over here, Sikot and Aleph Rambam. Call Makkah a mutter, like it's just a rabbin, Lel Shabbos, but tells him that it's Lavi Masi. You're allowed to wear your towels at night in the street. Shem Noya Beged, it actually tells, because it's beautiful, it's part of the garment, and we don't have to be concerned that you're carrying something on Shabbos. But with the Ramah says, Savik Brachas Lahakel says, Mishnah Berurah, a very important line, a mistaken line. Says Mishnah Berurah, no dafka linear bracha. It's only with regard to the bracha you do not make the bracha. But what about wearing tzitzis at night? Says Mishnah Berurah, Avalaser Lilbish Kusha Leila B'Yoyim B'Loy Tzitzis. Number one, if you're wearing a nighttime garment, pajamas by day, you have to put on tzitzis. And here's the line: Kso Shel Yoyim B'Layla. You have to wear tzitzis Misham Safik, and that's the reason why one should not just take off its tzitzis when it comes night. The Mishnah Berurah says you have to wear them still at night. Near the Hashat, Alavish Talis. When the Sheikh Sibur is putting on a talis at night, you don't have to check them. For this level of a suffix, we can rely on the Chazaka. So you don't have to check the tzitzis, you don't have to make a bracha, but you have to wear them at night. Says Mishruah, if God the Gimel Gam Ken the Yom Pirish Gam the Yom Bafilim Yuchla Leila Coach Ken the Yom Levat Chilas Arvis, you put it in your towels at night. Ubetaina Sibur says Mishruah, if God the Dalit Kshalivs and towels with Mincha, we are towels at Mincha. Yosir the towels Kishil Baruchu, and they went straight into Meir. If you remove the towels when you get to Baruchu, Me'achdach Shavin Lav Shana towels Alam is a Tzitzis. Im Yeh Alav Yiraya Ki'ilu Saver the Leila's Van Tzitzis. It looks like you hold that night is the time for Tzitzis, and we hold not. Call Malkum Hashas of Neya Ahmad. And if you're not wearing a jacket, and of course this is one of the more hidden sources that the Mishnah Berurah says you should wearing a jacket when you're davening for the Amud. Of course, this occurs in Ilchos Tefillah as well. Because of the cover of the tzibur, then you should wear a talus if you're not wearing a jacket. Whoever puts on a talus. You should put on your talus. kavod atzivar vein mevarich alav. I don't believe that's the problem. Minuk. Yisatif li damais lamalachim atim levanim. Why do we put on a talis and Yom Kippur so we look like malachim that wear white? Ulakach lo yasir balayla ad achar tzilas arvis. You were the whole Yom Kippur, so what's Yom Kippurim? So what should you do? You should put on a talis during the daytime. But yoyim avalim icha lesativ alayla. Sometimes it happens you're running into Yom Kippur a little bit late. Then shavla yavarich. If it's nighttime already, don't make a bracha. L'shem l'achal ger Rambam. Umash b'divrei Magen Avram sev God and Dal afilu bein hashmashois, which perhaps is the more common case. We should, of course, show up on time. But commonly, you walk in right around Shkia, and now it's being Hashmasha. He says, Mishnah Berurah, Mutter levarich atzisa kechavim yiladim v'gabracha on your talis. Taimai dalo b'tzitzis loksiv yoim. What was the whole reason that Laila loves man tzitzis? It wasn't a diuk, wasn't a limur from the fact that Torah says yoim. Rather, rakul re'isa ma'isa, you should see it. Mashma calls ma'ashen nucha lirais, whenever you're able to see. V'chein pasuk ba'al derech ha'chaim. B'sefer mata Ephraim risi shemachmer bazeh. Ach, im zeh gufa hu mistapik im kvar ygia bin hashmashes. If you're not sure if it reached bin hashmashes, which again, each of these cases is getting more and more and more prevalent. You're not sure if it reached bin hashmashes, meaning, you know, it's right around shkia time, and you're running into shul, and you're not sure is it bin hashmashes yet. Then says Mishmur near to be vada yuchal levarech. Meaning, Mishnah Berurah just paskin that bin hashmashes after shkia you can make a bracha. Says Mishnah Berurah, now if you're not sure for sure, the blavachi das tais v'rosh so you always have the rush and tais that says yechayev. So very important halacha over here. You don't make a bracha at night. You don't have to check your tzitzis at night, but you should wear the tzitzis at night. Before we see the Dirshu over here, let's continue and see Sef Beis and Gimel says Mishnah Berurah Mechaber Sef Beis Sadinim sheets Apo Bisha Adam Yashin Ba'am. Even though you sleep in them by Ikir in the morning, in Matilim Ba'am tzitzis, you don't need to put tzitzis on a sheet. Says Mishnah Berurah Sef Katan Gimel. This is Mechaber Gimel, excuse me. Me'ima say Mevarach al tzitzis b'shachar. When you let to make a bracha on tzitzis in the morning, Mishak means Shabbat L'Lav and Shabbat. It's a new time. It's not alois. It's not neis. It's a zman called Misha Yakir. When you could know the difference between blue and white. It's on the calendar. If you were from alois, since you couldn't make a bracha. Again, you can even make a bracha from alois. Earlier, and then when it comes to the right time, move it and make a bracha. Says Mishnah Berurah, these sheets, the Iker Tashmish is at night, and their garment for the night. Rambam, according to the Rambam, says Leila Chayev Bayom, you'd be Chayev. If there are another reason to be Pater Misham to, and here it is. Many people are wearing a sheet. You don't wear a sheet. You cover yourself with the sheet. So says Mishnah Berurah, yes, according to Mordechai, you have to wear it or wrap yourself. You're not Chayev if the tzitzis are just upon you. But those that argue Tzitzis, so you lose that if you lose miatzia tachtov beged shel arba kanavas chayv tzitzis. Koshkin derech haolam, certainly if it's just upon you. Alkei nechriya Magen Avram diase karen achas agulav yatzal levi dukliyama. You should make one corner rounded on your sheet to be to everyone. Ochein masha medvarav says Mishnah Berurah din lahachmer bazeh, and this maybe is the reason why no one is probably so familiar with this halacha that they have to round the corner of their bed sheets. Why not? Rak b'sadin shel semer, only if it's a woolen sheet. Avaloi b'shel pish, not if it's linen, or b'shel minim. Shar minim v'ayin tom b'rim magadim. So Mishnah Berurah paskins that Medina, you do not have to round the corner unless it is a woolen sheet, then one should be machmir. Misha Yakir says Mishnah Berurah have got that's the time between blue and white. Was man Misha Yiras Chavira Ragli Mai, a friend that you know, Ksas a little bit Richel Garbam is a Kurenu 4 amos away and you can recognize him. Muskar like one Simon Chas, the Kapikriya Shema, and we'll get to there over there. Basiv Simon Chas, Bishim Arash, Chashiro, Ayin Shabi Agrab in your Nenu. Says Mishnah Berurah V'chein Doigen, Ayin Ber Agra, Shif got in Yod Shapasik, that's the Shulchan Aruch, because of him Shadach Chukah. If you need to, you let it put on from Alois. I'll call upon him the Chatchila bevadei nacham meoi lamtim levarich hashak mitchiz lavan. You should not make the bracha until Misha Yaakov. Chinir das el Yerabba. Many minyanim, that's what they do. They put on the talis earlier. Certain times of the winter, it definitely will be relevant if they do not end up having daylight savings. They keep this time always without changing the clock, then everything's going to get very, very late. Then perhaps this would be nagea. If someone is a shas chag, you can make a bracha earlier. But if you had it near that, feeling birech says before even made a bracha before do not make a new bracha. Lo yachzor levarech shemalacha karosh lo zayom leila chayim. Maybe we're passing like the rush. Therefore, you'd be yoytze by the bracha mashish by ritzleimar b'titi yoysa. Before we call it a day, it is a little bit late. Let's just see an important Mishnah Berurah. Dirshu, note number 2 over here, a halach that we've seen already, according to the Megadim, that you're allowed to make tzitzis at night, a common and commonly asked question, and it's important to know the halacha. But let's say you're not wearing a beged of 4 corners, which of course is what we always have that shaylux. We don't wear a 4-cornered beged. We put on our talis cut and our tzitzis that have 4 corners. So says Ramosha, at nighttime, even though the garment of day is chayv at night, you're not oinshin. This, of course, is Ramosha l'shitase. We explained at length. The Ramosha holds that you get punished for not doing the mitzvah of tzitzis, which is part of the reason that even one cannot just say, oh, if I don't wear a 4-corner garment, I don't have to wear tzitzis. Ramosha says, no, it's a minhag that Klal Yisrael accepted, and if you're not going to comply, then you're nichlal in the Gemara minachis, that you get punished by one who is trying to avoid the mitzvah. But says Ramosha, if you don't wear tzitzis at night, then you don't get that punishment. So it is a lower level, but we already seen that you don't make a bracha at night, but one should not go and purposely take off tzitzis at night. Ramosha actually in the tshuva continues and says that perhaps if you're already not wearing tzitzis, for example, someone took a shower at night and he wants to, does he have to put back on the tzitzis? Then the Mishnah Berurah seemingly taught us it's the right thing to do. And Ramosha is pointing out that you're not going to get punished if you don't. Of course, it doesn't hurt. It's Machlekes Rosh and Rambam. Who wouldn't want to get the incredible mile of tzitzis? We'll pick up from here in the next year.